until 1450, books were written and copied by hand. We call those manuscripts. They're some of the most beautiful works in existence. But these manuscripts would take many months, even years to write or copy. This is where today's guest comes in. Well, he's not an actual guest because he's been gone for several hundred years, but he and his invention are the topic of this video. I'm talking about Johannes Gensfleisch zur Laden zum Gutenberg, also known as Johann Gutenberg. Not much is known about Gutenberg's early years. He was born in the house called Hof zum Gutenberg in Mainz, Germany. Gutenberg, no doubt, learned some metalsmith trade from the mint, where his father and several relatives had important positions. He has the idea to create a machine and a process to copy books in a way never done before at scale. It's going to take many years and a lot of money. This secret project is a movable type printing press. Block printing and some movable type had been around for quite some time, but Gutenberg was thinking big. How to scale the process without compromising on quality. Let's start with the ink. Gutenberg needed something that would stick to the metal type, transfer well to the page, and look great. Carbon, copper, lead, titanium, and sulfur are some of the identifiable elements in the ink that Gutenberg used. These components were similar to those used in 15th century paintings. Well, what about the metal type? Gutenberg created a metal alloy of lead, tin, and antimony in order to meet his requirements for durability, quality, and reusability. Not to mention how it holds and transfers the special ink Gutenberg created. The genius part of this is the molds he created to cast all those individual pieces of type. First, a steel positive punch was created by hand, and then the punch was hammered into copper to create a negative or cast for the letters. This copper cast was put into a special mold mechanism into which Gutenberg's metal alloy was poured, and seconds later a perfect metal type was formed. About 270 different sorts of metal type needed to be made, from capitals, lowercase, punctuations, abbreviations, ligatures, and those that gave spacing variation to allow for a perfect kern, or evenly spaced lines. A number of each sort had to be created to fill 1 to 2 pages of text. This means that Gutenberg needed to create somewhere in the ballpark of 2,600 individual pieces of type. After a few trials, Gutenberg settled on having 42 lines of type on each page that he printed. So his first major project is often called the 42-line Bible. And speaking of the Bible, why did Gutenberg choose the Bible as his first major printing project? Yes, the Bible has been known to be a book of great importance and influence, but let's hear straight from Gutenberg regarding his invention and the Bible.
It is a press, certainly, but a press from which shall soon flow in inexhaustible streams of the most abundant and most marvelous liquor that has ever flowed to relieve the thirst of man. Through it, God will spread his word. A spring of pure truth shall flow from it. Like a new star, it shall scatter the darkness of ignorance and cause a light heretofore unknown to shine among men.
Well spoken, sir. By the way, the Bible in the 1400s was almost entirely limited to the Latin language. Any other translations were prohibited by the Roman Catholic Church. Alright, let's move to the surface to print onto. If Gutenberg had his way, he would have most likely printed all the Bibles on vellum, which is an animal skin, specifically in this case, made from calves. It's sturdy, accepts ink well, and is very beautiful. Gutenberg wanted to print between 160 to 180 copies of the Latin Bible. Each book contained more than 1,280 pages, and for every book on vellum, it's estimated that 170 calves were needed. To be fair, the page sizes that were used for this and many of the other books in that time were much larger than today's typical sizes. As it turned out, vellum was too costly for this incredible undertaking, so after a few dozen copies on vellum, Gutenberg switched to paper. Not the inferior wood pulp paper that we know of today, but rag cotton fiber paper, which easily lasts centuries. The remaining printing of the Latin Bible was done using this type of paper. Okay, now it's time to talk about the press. Gutenberg would commission a carpenter to build his press in a similar style to the wine presses of the day. The parts of the printing press were as follows: the frame, the screw, the bar for pulling, the platen for even distribution of the pressure of the press, the form that holds the type, the tympan and frisket which held the paper or vellum in place, and then there was the ink blotters to disperse the ink evenly across the metal type. The process itself was pretty simple. Set the type in the forms. Of course, it needed to be put in backwards so that it would print the right way, and then evenly disperse the ink over the metal type, put the paper in the tympan and secure with the frisket, lay the tympan over the form and move the form under the platen. Pull the bar with a good amount of oomph, which presses the paper onto the ink-coated metal type. Reverse the order of that whole operation and carefully lift out the printed paper. And voila, a printed page. Now rinse and repeat. Gutenberg started printing the Bibles around 1454 and would print somewhere in the ballpark of 180 Bibles on his new invention of the movable type printing press. For efficiency, Gutenberg printed with just the black ink on each of the pages. A completed stack of pages would be sold, maybe to universities, churches, or even wealthy individuals, and it would be up to the buyer to have the colors and any other decorations added along with having the book bound. The monasteries were the perfect place for this, since they did the majority of manuscript writing and decoration, so it would make sense for them to do the finishing work on the Gutenberg Bibles. Every single Gutenberg is different because of that fact. Different individuals of varying skill sets would do the work of rubrication, which is adding the red, and any designs that the purchaser wanted done with drawing or illumination. So a single page from one Gutenberg could look very different to the same page from any other copy. So how many Gutenberg copies exist today, you might be asking? Only 49 copies exist today, and only 21 of those are complete. Many are on display around the world, and I encourage you to plan a visit to see one. Gutenberg unfortunately ended up losing his printing press and all of his tools to business partners, but his invention went on to change the world. Less than 50 years after the printing of the Gutenberg Bible, there are said to have been 1,000 printing presses in Western Europe, and the number of books printed was a staggering 8 million, and that was in the year 1500. Many say that Gutenberg's invention of the movable type printing press was the most important invention of all time.
He just took a bowl, put a handle on it, stuffed it with horsehair, and covered it with, guess what? Gänzefleisch, goose skin. So he finally made use of his thing. Both exactly the same. We've got to get the ink perfectly smooth over the whole surface of the ink ball. Nobody likes licorice.
Well, ever since that first
Okay. The person that did this became known as the beater. And of course it took a little practice and skill to do this, because you have to get a little ink on every letter. Okay, I think we're about ready to go.
We printed
What's the next?
How many?
Let's see. He's got to figure out how to print on the other side and line it up exactly. And so here's the answer to that problem, the tympan and the frisket. We'll open it up here. This is called the tympan. It's just leather over a frame that provides a place for us to put our paper on. These little points called duckbills position it up and down. And then the mark left and right here. Now watch this. These pins poke through the paper. And when he prints on the other side, he puts the paper back on through those same holes. And that gives him perfect alignment between the front and the back. It's still basically the same system that's used on printing presses even today, pin register. Now the frisket comes down to hold the paper against the tympan. It's cut out there where we're going to print. It also allows us to lift that paper back up off that sticky type without smearing it or tearing it because it's damp. So we're ready to fold the bed of the press under the platen. The next thing that happens is you pull the handle, which turns the screw and lowers the platen and presses the paper against the inky type. The person that did this was called a very exotic name, the puller. Towards you as
Hard as you can.
Try to make a good impression.
Don't break it. When President Monson was here, he pulled that thing, and I said, "Don't break it." About brought the house down. He really pulled it though. He moved the press a little bit.
Okay, now notice the size of the platen is really quite small. Because the bigger the platen is, the more power it takes to get sufficient impression. So I just printed the one page, so I've got to roll it out and get the other page. Now, we'd like to have some of the gals do it. How about,
Go for it, Sabrina. I'll film for
Yeah,
you.
take a picture. We're gonna pause while we do it. Pull it as hard as you can.
okay,
Hard.
come on,
Don't
gotta make a
put
good
hold.
impression.
Both on top.
That's what Gutenberg did.
Well, that sounds pretty good.
It's hard.
Did it?
Yeah, how'd you like to do that all day long?
You'd have some arm muscles.
All right, now we're gonna roll it out. Now listen quietly, and you can hear the frisket lift that paper
This is called
off that
the
sticky top.
press kiss.
Oh, boy.
We did pretty good.
Wow.
Did a pretty good inking job and a pretty good pulling job.